And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, and you can find me on YouTube. And please do find me there. Please do subscribe if you can. Click the bell icon and the notification icon, because clicking the bell icon evidently is not enough anymore. You have to also click notifications, and maybe you'll still not get a notification, but it doesn't hurt, I guess. But you can find me at Coffee Talk Live and at Prep University on YouTube, and we simultaneously broadcast the podcast Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. If you have a Twitter account, please do find me there. And naturally, there is Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, as we get ready to dive into what the hell is going on in the world today, because it's a crazy world, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. It makes no sense. You know, I hesitate to say that, because it's not the world that's the problem, but the people that are in it. The people are the problem. Dusty, keeping me company here in the background. For those of you who can see, I know some people can't see, they're just listening. Dusty is keeping me company today. I don't have any other felines in the room, unfortunately, but that's okay. That's okay. And I do, of course, read through as many of the comments as I reasonably can. For those of you who are listening and not able to see what's going on, and I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in thus far. I see Heidi is here. Dragon is here. Brian is here, throwing their hat in the ring, as it were, so far. And Uncle is here. Come here, buddy. Uncle is here. For those of you who, I suppose everybody always likes to see Uncle. Come here, buddy. Oh, man, that's a lot of cat. Hi. Hi, buddy. There he is. Uncle, everyone. Uncle the tuxedo cat. I'm sure he's more than 20 pounds at this point. He really doesn't even eat all that much. He's just big. Isn't that right? Isn't that right, buddy? Yeah, he's a good boy. Uncle, everyone. Shedding all over me because it's summer. He needs to be brushed down pretty good. You need a brushing? You want to get down? I'll put you down. Uncle, everybody. As we continue here, I see Helter is here, as well as Ragnar. Thanks for joining us here today as we get ready to jump into what is going on in the world. And we're going to start off with sweet old, lovable old, reliable old, trustworthy old, honest old, transparent old, very old Uncle Joe Biden, the 81 million vote man, Joe Biden, back in the news. More accusations. Fox News article. Will anything be done about what he's being accused of? Not bloody likely, but you may as well know what it is. And what is waiting for Restream to pop it up here. Biden accused of failing to disclose vacations that were gifted to him by wealthy supporters. Oh no. Biden, you didn't tell people about who paid for your vacations? You've got to be kidding me. So honest and trustworthy. You did everything by the book all the time. Heidi wants to know if I have a Cash App. I have never been able to get that thing. I have it, but I've never been able to get it to work. So I that's why I have the PayPal link. I have a GoFundMe link that is in the description and also at the beginning of this chat message. If there it is again. And of course, there should be an icon, a donation icon on the page. if you were interested in something like that. But Cash App, I mean, I've tried to link it up. I've never been able to get that damn thing to work right. But Biden accused of failing to disclose vacations. Article reads, a conservative watchdog was accusing President Biden of possible violations of the federal financial disclosure law. Hold on. I hate that. Trying to force you to look at. Okay. Violations of federal financial disclosure laws related to lavish vacations that he took at the homes of businessmen and Democratic donors. Russ Vought, president of the Center for Renewing America, is asking the Department of Justice to investigate Biden for alleged serious ethical lapses in failing to disclose free vacations that do not appear to qualify under certain exemptions in the Ethics in Government Act, according to a complaint addressed to Attorney General Merrick Garland and obtained by Fox News Digital. Since at least the time he was vice president, Biden has demonstrated a concerning and systematic trend of accepting lavish vacations as gifts from wealthy individuals with business before the government, and has failed to disclose these gifts in violation of EIGA, wrote Vought, who was the director of the White House Office of Management and Budget under Donald Trump. Whenever Biden wishes to celebrate a holiday or go on vacation, there seems to be a billionaire whose interests can be benefited by the president waiting to offer a vacation home. The potential for conflict of interests are vast, which is why you're supposed to disclose that stuff. Better to even not accept those sorts of things from these types of people, because these are people that are in business with the government. And you have to wonder, hey, is there a wink and a nod getting these contracts? Which I think we all know the answer to that. The complaint also references an August 23 week-long vacation the Bidens took at climate investor and former Democratic presidential candidate Tom Steiner's $18 million waterfront mansion on Lake Tahoe. The White House said the First Lady rented the Nevada home for fair market value, but did not disclose how much the Bidens actually paid for it. Vaughn asserts there is reason to doubt the White House's claim, noting that Steyer was investigated for illegally renting the home to Biden because Douglas County officials confirmed he did not have a permit to do so. However, a local investigation closed after the county officials could not substantiate that a code violation occurred. Annual reports released by the White House for the 2020-2022 show Biden did not disclose any gifts during those years. The wealthy donors and businessmen who provided their homes to Biden has stake issues that cross his desk, the complaint alleges, and Biden's failure to disclose his vacation stays could mask what may be serious conflicts of interest. Well, of course, how else is he going to get his graft? Or grift. It depends on your pronunciation. I've heard it described both ways. You got to get it somehow. D'Lo is here, as well as Fluke Man. And Heidi says, I'll mail it. I hate PayPal. Okay, Heidi, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do. And I do have the P.O. box as well. And the P.O. box is also listed there. A lot of people send us cat food to the P.O. box, which is very helpful because we go through tons of it with all of our shelter pets. But there you go. Big surprise. Biden is getting gifts by way of vacation homes, at least in this complaint. And we read a previous complaint against the Bidens because of Hunter Biden's so-called artwork and the coincidence in the fact that people who had paid hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars for Hunter Biden's paintings now have really cushy government contracts and even have jobs within the executive branch of the White House now. Just by coincidence. Just by coincidence. But I got to throw it out there. What good does it do to expose any of this if nothing's ever going to be done about it? Oh yeah, we want Biden. We want Biden to be looked at for this. We want Biden to be investigated. We want this to be exposed. And then what? What happens after that? What happens next? What's actually done about it? Who gets disciplined? Who gets fined? Who goes to jail? Anybody? Anybody at all? You really have to wonder what the hell's the point. What's the point? And Occult Prepper is here. He said, sorry he missed the beginning. That's all right. Glad you could make it. And Sven says, Biden is a turd. If only someone had seen this before. A lot of people saw it. I mean, before he was president, as vice president and as senator, what has he accomplished? The only thing he successfully accomplished is keeping his job. The guy's been in politics now more than 50 years and really has, I think, practically nothing to show for it. What have you done? Yeah, you can't even say that you really did the job, which is all anybody wants from lawmakers and politicians. Just do the job, huh? Do the job. You don't have to be the first. You don't have to set history. You don't have to make history. You don't have to impress us by with your talking points and by pandering to fringe minority groups. Just do your freaking job. That's all we want. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. And Monkey is here. Thanks for joining us today, Monkey. That kind of stuff just drives me absolutely nuts. Almost 50, more than 50 years in political office, and really nothing successful to show for it. Nothing that benefits mankind. Nothing that benefited his constituents. His legacy is being extremely hard on criminals with drug charges. But now he's flip-flopped on that even, because now he's like, oh, no one should have to sit in jail because of marijuana. Bastard, you put him there. That's your fault. That was your legacy. Now you want to act like that's a bad thing. Well, you know, hey, what are you going to do? But that's what goes on. Now, you all remember Lithonia James. Now, Lithonia James, of course, Lithonia James is the district attorney, right, in New York. And recently, she was given a hard time by firefighters at an event. And she was booed and hissed. They don't like her. They don't like her. But she has her own ideas about why that is. Or the lawmakers in New York, rather, have their own why it is that the firefighters don't like Lithonia James. According to the Daily Mail, judge claims that the firefighters, New York City firefighters, booed Lithonia James because she's black. Yeah, let's make it about race, why don't we? Let's fan that fire some more, because Lord knows it's not burning enough already. Don't jump ahead. Hold still. New York firefighters who heckled State Attorney General Lithonia James with chants of Donald Trump were motivated by racism rather than politics. A Brooklyn judge has declared James faced a hostile audience as she gave a speech honoring newly promoted firefighters on March 8th, days after winning a $454 million judgment against the former president in court. Fire department bosses promised to hunt down staff who booed and chanted at the event in Brooklyn, and federal court judge Nicholas Garafius has ordered them to get on with it. Now, here's the thing, before I even get further into this article. They were not on duty, so they were exercising their First Amendment rights. So to hunt them down and force them to face disciplinary action for booing this woman when she came on stage violates their constitutional rights. So now they're trying to make it about race so that they don't have to have whatever their disciplinary measures are thrown out for being unconstitutional. You see what they're trying to do here? Quote, I've lived in New York City all my life. I know what the problem is, and believe me, front and center is what happened the other day, he told a meeting with city lawyers. This doesn't have to do with politics. This has to do with race. But the judge who officiated at the wedding of fellow Trump prosecutor Jack Smith in 2011 faced a furious backlash on social media for his analysis. Yeah, because he's just pandering. He's just trying to give them an out for attacking these firefighters for exercising their First Amendment rights. They don't like the woman. They don't like any of the current leadership here. They're all people, and I talked about that. I specifically targeted articles talking about the current commissioner of the New York City Fire Department, who has zero experience in the fire department, zero experience as a first responder. She's not even from New York. She's a career politician imported from California. They don't like her either. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe because if you're in charge of the firefighters in that city, you might want someone with firefighting background who's in charge of you. Just a suggestion. You may not like that person, but at least you'll respect them because they walk the walk and talk the talk. Back to the article. The Black and Hispanic firefighters booed her because of race? Question mark. Good point. Could also be because she's female. If they're going to claim racial bias, add gender bias, since only 2% of the fire department members are women, added another. We all know this was not racial, but just those firefighters' way of letting James know she made a huge mistake. They dislike her politics, not her skin color. And I agree. They don't like her. They don't like her. They don't trust her. They're tired of these diversity hires being in charge, telling them what to do. And I don't blame them. Monkey says, and yet they call the right the anti-free speech. Indeed. And Dragon says, not everything is about race. This judge is desperate to refocus the booing of James and her corruption to firefighters being racist. Indeed. And Helter says those boos were justified. This is not a racial issue. It's policy issues. Exactly. And again, I mean, you're going to threaten to hunt these people down and interfere with their jobs and penalize them. However, like I said, if they were on duty at the time, okay, if these were on-duty firefighters, then you're expected to adhere to some level of protocol, okay? Be respectful. You're in uniform and you're on duty. It's the same argument that they used to have, and this came around a lot in the 80s. This is when they started. We shouldn't be seeing police, firefighters, EMTs standing around smoking while they're on duty. Save that for your break. Or when you're off duty, don't do it while you're on duty and in uniform. That was a big thing in the 80s. I get it. These people were not on duty as far as I know. So why interfere with it? Well, because they don't want to hear it. Now I'm going to talk about Bill Maher really quickly. Bill Maher said something recently. Bill Maher, the flag, I call him the flag because he blows in the wind. Bill Maher has always been very left-leaning, but he's kind of jumped ship recently. I think he senses the changes in the wind, so he's restructured his focus recently. And he made a statement about the C virus. And you all know what I mean by the C virus. I hesitate to say the actual word because I've been warned by ScrewTube not to talk about it, so I try to be careful. United Liberty article, Bill Maher has a suggestion. He says we need a C virus commission. Bill Maher says Fauci and Democrats refuse to admit they got it wrong. They did get it wrong. And man, we all suffered for it. Not just the Western world, but the whole world. All of their governments got it wrong, and they hemmed their people up. They penned them up and forced them through a bottleneck. And the people didn't push back. That's the sad part. But back to the article, Bill Maher, the outspoken host of Real Time with Bill Maher, recently delivered a blistering critique of America's response to the C virus pandemic, highlighting a series of missteps and failures that characterized the nation's initial reaction. Maher emphasized how panic-induced overreactions led to chaotic scenes, such as the mismanagement aboard the Costa Luminosa cruise ship and the confusion at airports. These incidences underscored America's tendency to react impulsively rather than respond effectively to crises, resulting in a costly toll on public health and confidence in government institutions. Now, that's all true. Throughout the pandemic, dissenting voices were often marginalized or dismissed, preventing valuable insights and alternative perspectives from being considered. That's also true. Maher pointed out how, and it still counts because you still can't talk about it on ScrewTube. You still get in trouble. Maher points out how individuals who questioned certain measures or narratives were ridiculed or suppressed, hindering open dialogue and critical thinking. The dismissal of dissent not only eroded public trust, but also contributed to the perpetuation of false narratives and misinformation, further complicating efforts to combat the virus and its impact. And that's where I lose it a little bit, because I don't think that the virus really, in of itself, would have had that much of an impact, much more than the common flu. I don't believe it personally. I think that we were more affected by the reactions to the virus than the virus itself. I think that's what really hurt us. Maher also addressed the evolving understanding of the virus's origins, highlighting the shifting narratives surrounding its emergence. What were once dismissed as a conspiracy theories are now being reconsidered, with mounting evidence suggesting possibly a lab leak in Wuhan. I don't care about all that. What Maher is calling for here, and it gets to it right here in this part of the article, it says, center to Maher's argument is the absence of a comprehensive examination of America's pandemic response through a dedicated C virus commission. He emphasizes the importance of conducting a thorough analysis of the missteps and failures in handling the crisis to learn from past mistakes and better prepare for future emergencies. A C virus commission would provide a platform for accountability, transparency, and reflection, fostering a deeper understanding of the systemic challenges and vulnerabilities exposed by the pandemic. This is where he loses me completely. First of all, you're talking about government. You're not really going to ever get a platform of accountability, transparency, and reflection. All right? It's not going to happen. They know exactly what they did, and they did it that way on purpose. They're not going to apologize for it now. If they do apologize for it, they're going to do it through a scapegoat, which is what Fauci is. Fauci is a number one scapegoat guy. If it ever hits the fan with the whole C virus and the pandemic and the lockdowns and all of the other nonsense and 6 feet of social distancing and tubs of hand sanitizer and wear double masks and all the other bullshit that came with it, it's going to fall exclusively on Fauci, and the other 1,000 or so lawmakers and other officials and corporate entities that are involved won't get touched. It'll just be him, and he knows it. He knows it, and he's been well compensated for that possibility. So what are you going to find? What are you going to be transparent about? What's going to be done about it now? This is where Maher, I get where he's coming from, but the last thing that America needs to do is spend its tax money funding yet another committee to investigate something we all already know. Well, most of us know it anyways. There are still a few people that are fooled. A few that are fooled. Flukeman says freckle-faced, ginger-haired dwarves are a minority. I don't see them getting special treatment. In fact, I see more blacks in one city than dwarfs my entire lifetime. Okay. And Monkey says, I don't trust Maher's jump from being on the left. He'll cave and go back to where it comes from in a few years or when the time is just right. Yeah, like I said, Maher is a flag. He blows in the wind. Oh, Flukeman, you know what's funny about that? You reminded me of something, a little story here for a moment. When I used to work for Store 24, you know, the what did they used to call that? The City Oasis. When I worked for Store 24, they called themselves the City Oasis. And Store 24 is a 24-hour convenience store in Massachusetts, predominantly the Boston area. I don't know how much further they were spread out, but I know that there was a ton of them in Boston. And I used to work third shift, and a lot of the street performers and subway performers used to catch the last trains coming out, and they'd get off at my stop. It was the Boston College line, the B trolley, on the corner of Harvard and Commonwealth Ave in Allston, Massachusetts. That's where the Store 24 was. I don't know if it's still there. And in this troupe of street performers were these two midgets, and they'd come in together and tear the store apart. They were messy and silly and cracking jokes, and they used to complain about the microwave because they want something to eat on the way home, so they get off there because Store 24 was still open, and they'd get the sandwiches, and then the microwave was set on top of the deli counter, so it was at least 5 feet up. And they used to always crack jokes about that they were going to file complaints for height discrimination because of the placement of the microwave. Just reminded me of that story. Dragon says Bill Maher is a useful idiot who will say whatever it takes to keep his job. That's most of them. And Sasquatch is here. Thanks for joining us today. Brian says people complain 2020 was a bad year when they made it that way, supporting the C virus lockdowns and masks, Black Lives Matter, and etc. Yeah. And again, like I said at the very beginning of the broadcast, in of itself, the world itself is not such a bad place. It's the people in it that screw it up. People just can't get along. They just can't leave things alone. They just can't help but try to force things and force issues and muddle things up. The people are the ones that screw it all up, trying to make everyone follow their lead or adhere to their requirements or believe what they believe, worship how they worship, think how they think. And then the sad part is the half of them don't even believe it themselves, but they want to force you to believe it. And they want to force you to get along. They don't believe it themselves, and they don't stick to the rules. Like earlier in the week, we talked about Alec Baldwin again, and that incident with his movie where somebody was shot by mistake. And it's like he's a just sopping, bleeding heart, far left, squishy liberal, disgustingly liberal, who thinks everybody should be disarmed. He doesn't think you should even own a pencil. But he's out on the set playing with guns, bringing live ammo for him and his friends, doing target shooting while they're off duty. And it's like, well, I thought guns were bad, Alec. I thought no one should have them, Alec. And screwing around with it, which anyone who's handled a gun who has had any training at all knows, loaded or unloaded, blanks or not, you don't just point that at someone and screw around. Killed a woman. And Sasquatch said that's the story of Oregon. Used to be a great place once upon a time. Yeah. And I totally get what you're saying. We're going to bounce back to New York. And take a look at something here. I've made a lot of comparisons between New York, the state, and California, because I really believe, tinfoil hat time. And remember, sometimes foil hats become crowns of knowledge. That the lawmakers in California are deliberately trying to destroy the state. That they're being paid behind the scenes money to destroy California so that it can be bought up cheap by tech billionaires for their 15-minute cities. And I believe that New York is going in that same direction. I do believe that. Pavlik article. New York City Mayor Adams announces minimum wage increase to $19.56 an hour for app-based restaurant delivery workers. Now, you all saw, I'm sure you've seen by now, the damage that has been done in California. The damage that has been done by California, raising the minimum wage to $20. It resulted in, so far, 1,280 restaurant workers getting laid off. Because, again, employees are always the bottom line with any business. I don't care how much money the business makes or doesn't. Employees are the bottom line. And that's just not plausible for them to be able to pay that and still make the same amount of money. And New York is headed in that direction now. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protection Commissioner Vilda Vera Miyuga have announced the inaugural annual rise in the minimum wage for app-based restaurant deliveries. The minimum wage will escalate to $19.56 per hour before tips, with annual adjustments for inflation to follow. Our workers have consistently delivered for us, and today the city is delivering for them, said Adams. I was raised by a working mother who supported my 5 siblings and me, and there are thousands of delivery workers doing the same to support themselves and their families. And while wages have not kept up with the rising cost of living since the new pay rate has been enforced, delivery workers have already seen a 165% increase in their pay per week. This is what it looks like to stand with class New Yorkers in building a fairer economy. Wage rate will be phased in gradually until April 1st of 2025 with an inflation adjustment of 3.15%. Prior to enforcement by the DCWP, the average wage for app-based restaurant delivery workers stood at $5.39. With the new regulation in effect, the apps have collectively paid delivery workers an additional $16.3 million per week across the workforce. The minimum pay rate, the quote, has been enormously successful in raising wages for our city's delivery workers and providing them greater means to support themselves and their families, says Miyuga. Any delivery worker with questions about the minimum pay rate or any of their other workers' rights should reach out to us. All right. So how do you think, how many of these people do you think are still going to have their jobs when they're going to jump? Because, you know, they're giving their rate that accounts for the fact that they take tips. It's just like when you are a waiter or waitress, when you're wait staff. There's a specific minimum wage because they know you get gratuities. So you're going to go from $5.39 an hour to $19.56, like that. And you think these people are going to keep their jobs? You just cost half of your delivery workers their jobs. You just cost them their livelihood. And I see New York is here. And a cult prepper. I thought you were already here. I said pepper. And Moose Ninja said, Chicago was once nice. I work downtown. I won't go to Chicago today. All of these blue cities, including New York, have become embarrassments. They once were great cities. And as many of you know, I used to live in Illinois. I used to live in Elgin, which is Kane County. I have been to Chicago, and quite frankly, it was not impressive at all. But yeah, we are glad, my wife and I, to be out of Illinois at this point because it was terrible. It was terrible. Terribly high taxes, as well as everything else. Bad crime rates downtown. Helter says companies aren't paying for this wage increase. The people using the services are odd. This is happening the same time when immigrants are flooding the food delivery job market. And Dragon says the more they make, the more taxes government can take. It's a win-win for everyone except the middle class. Yeah. $19.56 an hour. I mean, it's insulting, actually. It is. Because if you're going to push wages on medial labor jobs to those types of levels, it's insulting to people who have other jobs that are more highly skilled. You know, that's a little bit more than I was making working in the mental health clinic. And, you know, I'm handling dangerous mental health inpatients who are trying to kill me all day and wiping behinds. So I'm telling the truth. Wiping behinds and changing diapers and securing people so that they won't scratch and bite the hell out of you for a little less than that. And having to take constant training. I must have a stack of certificates from that job that's like about as thick as an old phone book. It's insulting. Where's the incentive to do the hard jobs when the medial labor jobs can get paid like that? You know what I mean? And let's see here. I had mentioned it, so I'm going to jump there. Talking about my theory about California and New York, that they're deliberately destroying those cities from the inside out so that they can sell cheap land to billionaires for their 15-minute city projects. And this story ties in with that. This is one that may fly under the radar. You may not find it. Waiting for Restream to boot it up. And this is the Tribune News Service. Silicon Valley billionaires planning California Forever utopia score a big win in $510 million fight against the farmers. The farmers, of course, that they have scooped up the land from, because they're buying up a lot of abandoned city blocks in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, whole city blocks, but they're also buying farmland. So here we go. Silicon Valley billionaires trying to build a utopian city in Solano County, California, scored a major win in court against landowners they accused of conspiring to inflate prices on their properties. In May last year, the project's real estate arm, Flannery Associates, sued dozens of landowners for $510 million in damages, claiming that through endless greed, say the tech billionaire conglomerate, because it's several tech billionaires doing this, they worked together to jack up sales prices for their property in violation of federal antitrust law. A number of the ranchers have reached settlements with Flannery, which has already spent more than $800 million on land. The land is probably worth 10 times that much, you barons. On Friday, Judge Troy Nunley in Sacramento U.S. District Court denied an attempt by the remaining landowners who deny price fixing to get the cases thrown out, a significant boost to the controversial and highly publicized development. Nunley cited messages in 2022 between property owners that he said provided evidence to back Flannery's claims of a price-fixing conspiracy. The California Forever project, which would see a city rise from farmland near Fairfield, is financially backed by Silicon Valley venture capitalist Mark Andreessen and Michael Mortiz, and fellow billionaires LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman and businesswoman Laurene Powell Jobs. Their plan has drawn nationwide attention and sparked vociferous debates in California over whether the ultra-rich should be building cities and whether agricultural land should be sacrificed for housing, jobs, and economic development. California's Forever initial imagery evoked Mediterranean villages and towns, but renderings released more recently suggest Mountain View with slight European flavors. I don't care about all that. It says that they have purchased and rezoned so far 18,600 acres of farmland. So essentially, they've been in there swooping up large tracts of farmland that they want to build their so-called utopian cities, aka 15-minute bird cages. And because these farmers got together to try to get a fair price for their land, and in some cases their legacy. We don't know how many generations back these farms go. Got together and said, hey, how can we get the best price we can for this if we're going to be forced out anyways because the lawmakers have rezoned this for these people? You get to sue them and take all the money back. 514 million of the 800 million that they've spent, or 510 million rather. It's right there, 510 million in damages out of the 800 million that they spent on the land. You've basically robbed those farmers. You are already screwing them. And have the audacity, a group of billionaires who came together to do this project, could have bought land anywhere. There's land available, you can find it. Accusing the farmers of endless greed for trying to get the most out of what they're being forced out of. And of course, because the lawmakers in California are working against its own people, wasn't too hard to find a judge that would go along. And Occult Prepper says, already here, was just being social and saying hi to the others. No problem, Occult. I'm just being facetious. Chris says you have machinists and PCB assemblers that make around $20 an hour. Yeah, and that's skilled labor. They earned that. I don't go to someplace like McDonald's. You know, when I worked at International House of Pancakes when I was a kid, I worked for straight up minimum wage, which was, I can't remember. I think it was $3.35 an hour, something like that. $3.15 or $3.35 or something. It was like 1984. I knew exactly what I was doing. I busted my ass in there because I took the job. I've always kind of understood that, if nothing else. Yeah, you know what? The pay may suck, but I took the job. I knew what I was getting myself into. New York says, very insulting for skilled people making less than a burger flipper. And Urban is here, says, hello, a little late today. Did any of you guys get notifications? As you know, as a point of interest, I'm subscribed to myself with notifications on to wait and see when I get a notice that I'm live. I did not yet get it today, and we're already 43 minutes in. Today, I didn't get it. Yesterday, I think it was, 24 minutes before I got it? Dragon says it's a company town with company stores where they have total control and you live there as long as they let you. Towns are supposed to be for people. Well, yeah, you think. Helter says the presence of billionaires in a society is a sign of dangerous instability. Well, we've always had ultra-rich people, just the dollar values look different. But, you know, I know your point. But when they start calling the shots, everyone should be alarmed. That's the point. Their 15-minute prison cities will spell the end. Nature Nerd said a bunch of high-density housing and shopping centers where a farm was. It's all about money. Urban says at least the original communists in Russia committed to an actual revolution before stealing people's homes. Thank you. Good point. And I got the starting notification, but not the 30-minute alert. I was just busy. Okay. And Heidi says minimum wage was $1.20 an hour when I started working as a waitress. Yeah, and like I said, man, sometimes you just suck it up. You know, when I did my videos a long time ago, and some of you remember the UPS videos, after I worked for UPS, I had some gripes about it. I didn't complain about the wage. The wage was shit. I made like, $9.50 or $9.25 an hour or something like that, and I busted my ass at UPS. All right, I wasn't a delivery driver, but I worked in the warehouse, and if any of you have ever seen a UPS warehouse, you know how much labor that is. It's extremely labor intensive. I didn't complain about the wage because, you know, I signed the dotted line and I understood, yeah, this is what I'm going to get paid, whatever. You know, need the job. Sometimes you just suck it up. My complaint was about how dishonest the company was with the employees, with explanations of the workloads and other things. You'll never have more than 3 trucks. I had 5 every day. Every day. You'll always work at your station. They kicked me back and forth between three sections. I was at between my station, between the unload where you empty the trucks, and then the air pack where the units that were unpacked from the 747s, which are difficult to work in because I'm tall, and it's only like about 5 feet of clearance inside those things, and you have to stoop down in there and throw the packages out to a conveyor unit. And they kicked me back and forth between these three sections, and I'm only ever supposed to work in one. There's a lot of things they lied about, and that's why I was upset with them. But I didn't complain about the wage. New York says, I remember the days of $3.15 an hour minimum wage. Yeah, that's going back. Because, you know, I like I said, I've been working since I was like 10 years old. So I've always kind of had that mindset. Sometimes you just got to bite the bullet. And yeah, you know, if this is what's available, suck it up and go on. We're going to take a minute. We're going to jump around here. And this is someone I've talked about a few times because it's hard not to. The fact that this is even going on shocks me. We're going to talk about Henyard again. And I've also heard it pronounced Henyard as well as Henyard. It's kind of like Fannie Willis. I've heard it both pronounced Fanny and Fawny. I don't know which one is right. I don't know if it's Henyard or Henyard. I don't think it really matters all that much. Worst mayor in the United States that we know of. To be fair, that we know of. Is this going to work right? Uh-oh. Is this doing right? It looks like it's trying to drag. Let's see if pause this to keep it from jumping around. Oh, give me a break. It's trying to play an ad. There we go. I think I got it. So that this will scroll properly. Am I frozen? So New York Post article, embattled Dalton dictator, Tiffany Henyard accused of trying to silence sexual assault accuser. There are now, in addition to everything else that's going on with Henyard in Illinois, sexual assault charges, of all things. And that just will not go away. So, wow. Won't go away. You're going to let me read the article or what? Really disappointed here with how screwy this is being. So the state, oh, here we go. Illinois self-described super mayor Tiffany Henyard is facing renewed calls for her resignation amid a state investigation into claims that she tried to silence a subordinate who accused a trustee of sexual assault. The State Department of Human Rights has launched a probe into a pair of complaints filed against the Dalton mayor's office in which a former assistant claims she was sexually assaulted by a trustee while on a taxpayer-funded trip to Las Vegas. She shouldn't have been out there anyways. I want to point that out because you don't take vacations on taxpayer funds. The victim, she started to feel disorientingly lightheaded after having her with the unidentified trustee on the Vegas trip, according to WGN-TV, obtained a copy of the complaint. She allegedly woke up the next morning in the trustee's hotel room with no memory of how she got there and was experiencing physical discomforts. Some suggestion that the employees might have had the ability to consent, the complaint says. It says Miles requested the trustee switch to a video call so that she could see the situation from his capacity as law enforcement officer who had just been informed of a possible crime. The trustee then panned the camera towards a bed where he could see a woman who was partially undressed, according to the complaint. The trustee then moved the camera to various private areas of the woman's body, displaying them on the screen, at times moving or removing articles of clothing. So they have video evidence of this. When the woman and Miles spoke to Henyard about the alleged incident upon their return from the trip, she initially appeared shocked and said if the information was made public, the assistant would be ruined and all the work she had done for the village would be lost. The former employee claims the mayor told her that she would take care of it and just trust her. But a few days later, the former employee said she was placed on unpaid medical leave without consent and then terminated. Yes. And evidently a couple of other people, I'm going to close that because it's just jumping all over the place. Apparently a few other people have lost their jobs as well. Urban says if Henyard had applied her talents and skills for good, she could have been a billionaire by now. Hey, you never know. And Chris said, my parents put me on the wooden soda pop case to work register in the family store for 50 cents an hour. Yeah, and I bet you learned to appreciate a work ethic too, didn't you? And that's why you do stuff like that with your kids. And Heidi said that's disgusting indeed. And at the last meeting, town meeting, which had to be shut down, there was more than 100 people outside because they were locked out of the town meeting. 100 people outside with bullhorns banging on the doors, screaming and yelling. Police were out there because the community is starting to converge on the town hall whenever she's there to confront her, and the people are being held back. They're not being allowed in. And the people that are being allowed in, because I think I read in another article, 42 people were allowed to attend the town meeting, while some couple of hundred other people had to stay outside. And the people that were allowed in were searched in order to gain entry. So, yeah, she's got a nice little dictatorship going there. Helter says if she was put in front of a psychiatrist, they'd probably diagnose her with narcissistic personality disorder. Dragon said still waiting for the FBI to make her do a perp walk. And Sasquatch said they used to work the field for 75 cents an hour back in the day. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of people have put in their dues, but it seems like you don't have to do that anymore. You can just go schlep at any job, half-ass take it seriously. I was thinking about that the other day. I don't know if this is in your community. Again, I'm in Georgia right now. And what I've noticed is for the last few years, I have not seen a postal worker in uniform. In the post office, yes. In the post office, they're wearing the postal uniform. But the delivery drivers who go around and feed the mailboxes and whatever, they're all dressed casual. They're all dressed casual, and they're always on the phone. They got an earpiece, and they're always talking. Like they get out, or you see them when they're leaning in to put the mail in the box because there's no walking routes around here. Or they get out and they drop off a package and they're chattering away because they get an earpiece in and they're wearing t-shirt and shorts, or they're wearing sweatsuit or something like that. I don't think I've seen a delivery driver or a mail delivery person in Georgia for several years actually in uniform. And that's something I'm not accustomed to. They've always been in uniform. Is it a Georgia thing, or has the post office thrown out some of their regulations about being in uniform? And then on the phone, constantly on the phone. And I remember a time, especially with the rollout of cell phones, when it came to where everybody could afford to have a cell phone. Cell phone use on the job was not permitted. Now, everywhere you go, I mean, even in Walmart, you see employees walking around with an earpiece just chattering away. Who are you talking to? Who talks to people all day? What are you doing? Urban says all the poor little race grifters in Dalton can't blame Whitey on this one, seen as literally everyone involved is black. And she's accused the people on the town council of going against her. How dare you? I'm black up here. I think I played that video clip a couple of weeks back. How dare you? I'm black up here. How dare you attack a sister like that? We black. Accusing them of quote unquote being Uncle Toms, if you will. And I think it's hilarious every time I hear a person referred to in that perspective as being Uncle Tom, all that is somebody who never read the book. If you ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin, Tom is probably the bravest character in the book. The bravest, most stand-up character in the book. Uncle Tom. Sambo and Jimbo are the type of character that people think they're referencing when they call somebody Uncle Tom. Sambo and Jimbo were the suck-ups in that book, but Tom was a very brave character. Sasquatch says the mill in the town had a great tradition. Every new hire had to do either 6 months or a year working in the pit, feeding wood into the boilers, 12-hour shifts. When your period of time, and you would go to the real job. Yeah, work your way up. Brian says that his boss says he's not paying people to play on their phones when they have them out at the front desk at our job. And Heidi says our postal clerk had a really cool T-shirt with the postal logo on it and silver glitter. All right, but I mean, is that an actual postal uniform, or is that just a shirt that they had? I don't know, but it occurs to me that it marks a decline in the pride of the institution, because being a postal worker, that's a pretty decent middle class government job. But you're seeing a slide here in the pride of the organization and in the employees who work for it, if you can dress casual all day and chatter on the phone. You know what I mean? And Sasquatch said it was sure weeding out the slackers right quick. And I saw a lot of that at UPS also. A lot of people pick on me in the UPS video saying, oh, you're old and that's why you couldn't do it. And it's like, yeah, I worked there for a couple of years and that's not why I left the company. It wasn't because it was labor intensive. And most of the people that were new hires were young folks that didn't even last the day. We would sound for break and they'd go out to their car and leave and never come back. The majority of them, first day. And Sasquatch again says, when working with the inspectors, we didn't wear uniforms. Okay. But I was just wondering about that, because you see this decline in the entire culture, the casual dress. Look at the people in even Walmart. I worked for Walmart. They had a dress standard. You wore the vest, and that was essentially your uniform. But otherwise, you had a dress standard of how you should appear, and Crocs and pajamas wouldn't have been acceptable when I worked there. You know what I mean? These people are dressed like they're just rolled out of bed and they're going out on the porch for the morning paper. Yeah, I know that's an old reference, because who gets the newspaper delivered anymore, right? Do they even deliver the daily paper anymore? Is there a daily paper? I don't think that. Is it the Atlanta Star? Who's the newspaper out here? I forget. I think they only print the Sunday edition now. Who still prints a daily paper? Wow. That's taken a step back. And Sasquatch said dress codes used to be quite strict. Yeah, because the company wanted to take pride. And the employees have no pride, and the company has no pride. What have you got left? You come into work looking any old crazy way, big gaudy jewelry, massive, like messy hairdo, clothes hanging off of your body, dressed in pajamas, wearing a giant onesie and Crocs. It's disgusting. What the hell happened to this country? Urban says, ever surprised a young person while their nose is in their phone? I prodded her in the lineup to keep moving, and the look on her face was blank on blank. Nothing in there. No. Empty minds. Empty minds are easy to control. Easy to control. But we are at the top of the hour, of course. Dusty, you can't hardly see her, but she's in the corner there in the chair, keeping me company, as well as Miss Granny Smith, sleeping on the floor. But we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube. Please do subscribe to both channels on YouTube if you have not, as well as hitting the bell icon of the notifications if you don't mind, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio. That is fistfulofradio.com. Fluke Man wants to know, how do you make the neighbor's cats stop using the garden as a toilet? Put around the perimeter of your garden, put up chicken wire. Because those sprays, you can get sprays for that. They don't work. But, set posts and wrap chicken wire around it. They won't want to be bothered to jump over it, because the wire is too thin. Regular fencing is something else, but the chicken wire, they don't like it because it's too thin. But anyways, again, signing off, and also fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will